Hi friends and body illuminators, I'm Rebecca and this is Body Illumination. Today we are going to review wheel, Urdhva Dhanurasana, or you may have heard of it as Chakrasana. Regardless, I will reference it as wheel in this video. And we typically get a little overwhelmed. You either love wheel or you don't love wheel. And in a practice that I teach or that I take, I love to do wheel. I really enjoy backbending. However, that said, most of us, including myself, have areas in the spine that are very mobile and areas that aren't so mobile, right? So we need to, she wanted to say hello. So we need to honor that and respect that. So the areas that are hypermobile, we need to create a little stability, and the areas that are less mobile, we need to create more flexibility and space. So what I'm going to share with you today is a way to not only work on your wheel if you don't have a wheel practice, but also to challenge yourself if you do wheel regularly to practice this variation regularly so that you get a little bit more of a nice, well-rounded wheel. So breathe. When we backbend, we go into the areas that we like to go into, just like anything in life. So your spine automatically goes into those regions that are a little bit more mobile. And that's natural, that's life, right? It's a strategy for us when we live and when we backbend. But we also want to try to create some space and growth in those areas that we're not as mobile and flexible. So let's go to a wall. That's what you will need today, is a wall. So we are going to practice wheel walking down a wall. I'm also going to reference a couple of other options. So a nice way to build backbending into your practice is to start with a block. So you grab a block. So you want to grab a block, and you can place this block between your shoulder blades. And you can start with it the short way, so you would lay on it like this, right between your shoulder blades, and open your heart. And then you take it underneath your hips as you would in bridge pose. So you would take it right underneath your pelvis, right here, right on your sacrum. So you would take it right on your sacrum right here. And that's another nice option to do. So you're lying on your back with either variation of your knees. It's also nice to work on downward dog, and there's so many other aspects to your practice that you wouldn't think would help with your backbending because they're not backbends, but tabletop, all of these poses, cat and cow, they all help with our wheel pose. Another great posture that is really great to do is camel pose, ustrasana. So you come up against the wall and you want to push your hips right up against the wall. So you get that pelvis right up against the wall. So that's a nice one to practice on the wall also, in addition to wheel. So we'll work on that, and we're going to work on wheel. So what you need is a wall to walk your wheel, and you should use a mat, and you need a couple of blocks to do this. Now let's practice camel, again on the wall. So you're going to take the block, and I want you to place it between your legs like this. Then you're going to walk your hips right up against the wall. Push your hands right on top of your hips, the back of your hips. Push them down so you can feel the tailbone reaching into the earth. Almost like you want to come into a posterior pelvic tilt, okay? But it's anatomically impossible to do that when you're in this posture. So you're pushing and pushing and pushing. Push your tailbone down, lift your heart up, and then bring your gaze up. And just hang out here for a little bit. Oh, this feels so wonderful. You can feel the collarbones opening up. You can feel your throat opening up. Again, if this is too much for your head today, then you can support your head with one hand or both hands. This is another nice variation. You can stay here with one arm up or both arms up and then lift, lift. Now, moving on, tuck the heel of one foot and reach back for that foot. Lift the other arm up into the sky. And then change sides. Now keep the feet tucked and reach back. Push your hips into the wall. Okay, now moving on again. Untuck your toes. Push your hips to the wall. When you're working on camel pose, what's nice about using the wall is it gives you the feedback of where your hips are in space, because lots of times when you're in a wheel, you tend to back bend into the lower back region instead of more of the upper chest opening up and the back bend in the upper back. And it's a nice preparatory pose for your wheel. So the first part of the wheel that I want to work on is just opening your heart. So you take your hands to your hips, root down through your feet, and then lift your heart up and back. So you don't need the wall for this part. And then the next part is taking one hand on the wall and just hanging out here. And then come back up, and then take the other hand on the wall and come back up. Now for most of us that do wheel regularly, this is somewhat challenging because we don't do this regularly. So you'll notice that sometimes one arm is a little more challenging than both arms. So play with this and hang out here, then bring your gaze up. Okay, now come back up. We're going to work this again. So I want you to do this again, and I want you to take 2 to 3 breaths, depending upon how you feel when you're doing this. So you're going to come up, hold, inhale, and exhale. Use those ujjayi breaths. This is a nice, delicious stretch for the neck, the collarbones, even the facial muscles, so soften the face. And then come on up. So place your hand right at the nape of your neck when you come up and guide yourself up. Okay. Let's do this again. Come on back. And then if you need to, you can support your head to come back up. Again, let's do that again. Take one hand back, hang out. Oh, that just feels like such a delicious stretch. You can feel it all down the side body. And then take the other hand up. The next part is taking the head up. The next part is going down the wall. Hello. And then come back up. So if you really want to work on your back bending, you take a couple of breaths as we move through this, and you see what areas of your spine are responsive to this. So come back again. Hang out. And hang out. Don't go all the way down yet. Now, you have to use your hands like the padas, the padabandhas. When you're going down the wall, you have to think you're like Spider-Man or Spider-Woman. And you want to use those bandhas in your hands. Make sure you have a nice grip. If you're sliding, you don't feel comfortable, then don't do this. And it's also really important to use your mat. I'm not using my mat, but I'm just demonstrating, excuse me, to make sure you're safe when you're doing this, okay? So come on down, and let's go down a little further. Use your breath. Now, another wonderful benefit from this, which you will feel right away, is that your chakras start to open up. You're opening up the spine, so it's easier for that energy to move through, especially this region, your heart. It's just such an amazing way to access that energy flow, to get into it right through here, through the heart center, through the throat. Let's go a little bit deeper and see how you feel. So we're going to do this again. And this time we're going to start from down here. And I wanted to show you the option with your hands on the block. So you take your wrist right up against the block. really important when you're doing this practice that you take your time with it and have fun with it, because when you make your practice something fun and playful, you'll approach it differently. I have a very dear friend and a client who just does not like yoga, and she says over and over and over again, like a mantra, I'm not flexible, I don't like this. But if you keep telling yourself that, then you don't give yourself the opportunity for change, to grow and evolve. I'm sure all of us at one point in our lives liked something and then didn't like it. And at one point in our lives, didn't like something and then began to like it. So when you hear yourself starting to use those mantras, then just slow down and stop and give yourself that space for change and growth. So if there is a chance that you might enjoy it, you can play with it and try it a little more.
Namaste. If you haven't checked out our playlist, check out Body Illuminations playlist and maybe subscribe. Have a beautiful day.